Welcome all back to Scott's Sporting Corner. So on today's episode, we're going to look at the intriguing new signing from Liverpool, which is Victor Muñoz. Liverpool came out of nowhere to bring in the Spanish international winger for the £40 million release clause, which has been reportedly suggested that there'll be two instalments of this. So a lot of Liverpool fans will be asking, who is Victor Muñoz? Well, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know a huge amount of Victor Munoz, but what did stand out for me, it wasn't necessarily the goals, the assists, or any of the statistics out there about his time in Spain. It's more about the journey he has been on, the career path of Victor Munoz. It hasn't been plain sailing. We're talking about a player who went from the Barcelona academy to being released, a player who had to rebuild his career from the ground up, a player who eventually found his way to Real Madrid before making the brave decision to leave in search of first team football. Looking at his career path, you can clearly see the knockbacks he's received, the tough decisions he's had to make. But what's key about this, every single time he's suffered one of these, he's got straight back up. Now, listen, like I said, I haven't watched a lot of Victor Munoz, but I'm not going to sit here and say I've studied his game for years. However, I do want to talk about the mentality, resilience, and characteristics he's shown throughout his career to reach this point, because often they are the key characteristics what make a player succeed or not succeed at Liverpool. You look at players such as Darwin Núñez, for example. He's got heaps of ability. He's got every physical attribute which you would think would be required to be successful at a club like Liverpool Football Club. But a lot of the times, what cost Darwin Núñez, for example, is what's in between the ears. And I do think Victor Munoz has got something about him. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but just by looking at his career path and the tough decisions he's shown, like I said, resilience, he's shown maturity, he's shown a load of different characteristics in such an early part of his career. But he has become the first sign under Andoni Iraola, and apparently it was Iraola who pushed for this move, obviously with his background in the Spanish league. He'll know that league inside out. Like I said, it is for the release clause of €40 million, which it looked like it was going to be Newcastle who was going to sign him, but it was Liverpool who came in at the 11th hour to get him. Like I said, he's a former Real Madrid Academy graduate, and I do believe they have got a first refusal on uh, Victor Munoz if he does decide to leave Liverpool in the future, which, to be honest with you, that is a real kind of, how can I word it? That bodes well that, if they rate him so highly, they want to keep that in there. They don't do that for, a rubbish player at the end of the day. But, time will tell. But what I want to do is focus on some of the attributes, his physical attributes, which I kind of mentioned on a previous episode, why I think he will be successful at Liverpool. If you look at Liverpool over the last 12 months, there's been a lack of real directness, pace, electric kind of Diaz type movement, and I think Victor Munoz will bring that. Having seen the bit of football that I have seen of him, we need basically a player to come in, be direct on the ball, provide energy, provide quality, and do it, which is key, I think, as well, without costing crazy amounts of money we're seeing in the transfer market right now. Because Liverpool, in my opinion, need a good 3, 4, 5 players of like a Victor Munoz, somebody who can come and play 30, 40 games per season, take that workload off a lot of the players we signed last season, because our squad is looking pretty bare at times right now, especially off the bench. And I do think that is sometimes the difference between winning trophies and falling short often comes from obviously the injuries that we do suffer, the scheduling, the congestion of that, and key players needing the rest. And that's why previously I've mentioned names such as Jared Bowens, the Harry Wilsons, even Cristiano Somerville. Not necessarily like superstar players, but guys who can come in, almost be that kind of Shaqiri type player for Liverpool again. But obviously, I didn't really anticipate Victor Munoz coming into this play. I wasn't really familiar with it at the time. But it looks like to me that is kind of what Liverpool have gone for, is a Victor Munoz type. Almost like a Federico Chiesa replacement, but hopefully will get more minutes than what Chiesa did under Arne Slot. But what Victor Munoz will bring, a player who come in wide areas, bring intensity, and most importantly, stretch defence and give Liverpool another attacking options across multiple competitions. So, before we move on any further about his playing stuff and all this, let's have a quick look at his career path before we kind of dive into everything. So, his youth career, He started off at St. Gabriel from 2012 to 2014. Then he got his move to Barcelona in 2014, and he stayed there up until 2017 when he was released. And then from 2017 to 2021, he went to Damm, and then he got his move to Real Madrid. And he spent a year in the youth academy before being promoted. And he went to, I believe it's like the reserve team of Real Madrid. It's a Madrid-based team called RSC International. And then he also spent time with the Real Madrid Castilla, which is obviously part of the academy, I believe, as well. And then he made the brave decision to go to Osasuna and spent this season there before signing for Liverpool. If you're looking at the pathway, like I said, it's not like a straight linear progression for Victor Muñoz. There's been multiple kind of setbacks, difficult decisions. These are the moments kind of where young players, they may give up or focus on, they may get a job or something like that. But it was credit to Victor Munoz that he kept going, and he, like I said, he made them decisions, which is kind of what led him to where he is today. But let's go back to the Barcelona days, and when you hear a player who has come through the La Masia, they usually assume everything went perfectly. Players like Lionel Messi, Andre Iniesta, Xavi Hernandez all emerged through the famous Barcelona academy. But Victor Muñoz's story is different. After spending several years at Barcelona, he was released as a teenager. Just think about that for a moment. At the age where most young players are dreaming about becoming professionals, Barcelona decided Victor Muñoz wasn't part of their future. For many players, this is where the dream dies, unfortunately, but for Muñoz, it became the fuel for him. This led him to move in to Damm, which was another academy team that he did join. And obviously, it's not, one of the bigger clubs in Spain, but because what he's shown there, he got his head down, he worked hard. It kind of showed the resilience required to get back up to the top, turn up every training session on time, getting, you know, consistent matches under his belt, and he caught the eye of Real Madrid, and this is when Real Madrid come knocking for him, and also proving Barcelona wrong by joining Real Madrid after being released there. Munoz earned his opportunity and continued developing with one of the most competitive academy systems in football. This wasn't a player surviving on reputation. He was earning every step through performances after coming back from Damm. But the key thing, what I found, really, it's not the fact that he came through the academy. We can clearly see that he is a good player because he's been through, the Barcelona setup. He's gone to Real Madrid. It's the fact that I'm one that he's bounced back from the Barcelona kind of rejection. But this part here is the decision by Victor Munoz to leave Real Madrid, because many players spend years trying to get into the Real Madrid team. Very few decide to leave. When you see so many of them, like players like, I think Dani Ceballos is another great example, where he's been around the setup at Real Madrid for many years, and he's obviously had the odd loan move every so often. But I think he's the wrong side of 30 now. He's only just decided to leave Real Madrid. But Victor Munoz has chose to basically playing time, his career path over the kind of prestige of staying at Real Madrid. Um, well, for a Spaniard, when you're at Real Madrid, it's easy to stay comfortable. The badge is prestigious. The facilities are elite. The club's one of the biggest in world football, but eventually every player has to make a decision. Do you kind of stay and hope, obviously we're on a good wage, you're part of trophy winning teams, or do you leave and play? Munoz chose to play. He chose to develop his outside of the comfort zone, and he took the opportunity to do this by joining Osasuna. And it was a gamble to go to Osasuna. It was a massive test. At Real Madrid, you're judged kind of on potential. At Osasuna, you got week in, week out, you're going to be judged on your performances on the pitch, against seasoned professionals, against experienced La Liga defenders. There was kind of nowhere to hide once he's made that move to Osasuna, and that's exactly why this move was so important. And this is where Victor Munoz stopped being a prospect and started becoming a professional footballer and a Spanish international footballer. So why Osasuna was so important, what impresses me wasn't necessarily the numbers, it was the fact that he's accepted responsibility. Osasuna provided him with something Real Madrid couldn't guarantee. He got minutes, which led to experience, but he got experience under pressure by playing real football. Week after week, he forced to solve problems on the pitch. He had to learn how to impact games, how to deal with setbacks, how to handle expectation. Ultimately, he proved he belonged in La Liga. That season transformed him from a talented academy graduate into a player Liverpool were willing to spend serious money on. While Liverpool do believe in him, though, so while Liverpool have moved for Victor Muñoz, I don't think it's simply because of his ability. And I think this is the point of this podcast episode today. It's because of the mentality he's demonstrated throughout his career. He's responded to rejection. He's rebuilt after setbacks. He's earned opportunities instead of waiting for them. And when faced with a comfortable option at Real Madrid, he chose the more difficult path because he believed it would make him better. Those are the traits Liverpool are often looking for. Players who are hungry, players who are resilient, and players who have something to prove. So my kind of final thoughts with Victor Muñoz: will he become a Liverpool star? Will he become a big player for Liverpool? Nobody actually knows. The Premier League, guys, I had to pause recording there due to family needing help. So yeah, where was we? So Liverpool, why will he become a star at Liverpool? Nobody knows. The Premier League is one of the toughest leagues in the world. Nothing will be. What I'm trying to say is, Munoz has a lot of work to do, obviously, on his actual performances, on his game. But I do think that some of the standout kind of stuff what he's shown mentality wise throughout his career will be a massive opportunity for, well, basically massive characteristic for Victor Munoz. To come on, now he's kind of overcome the obstacle of rejection from Barcelona, to making the decision to go to Osasuna. He's now his biggest test. Obviously, he's been in the Spain national team as well. He's been part of the World Cup squad. One of the biggest tests that he's got right now is to play in the Premier League, which is the toughest league in the world. He'll have to overcome physical attributions, the congestion of fixtures, the scrutiny of playing for Liverpool. Obviously, he's come through two big academies already, but what he hasn't played week in, week out for a top team. And I'm not saying this is disrespectful to Osasuna. What I'm saying is that it's the media around that as well. But he has shown he can overcome adversity. Like I said, he's been released by Barcelona. He responded and rebuilt him at Damm, and then he earned that move to Real Madrid, and he chose to leave Real Madrid to prove himself at Osasuna, and now he arrives at Liverpool. The story of Victor Muñoz isn't about a player who has everything handed to him. It's about a player who has spent his entire career overcoming obstacles. And if he brings that mentality to Anfield, Liverpool may have found themselves a very interesting player indeed. Liverpool haven't signed a finished product. They have signed a player who has spent his entire career adapting, overcoming setbacks, and proving people wrong. And he's basically rolling with the punches. If he can keep doing that at Liverpool, this could be the start of something very special. If you've enjoyed this episode, guys, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating, and follow Scott Sporting Corner for more Liverpool content on whatever platform you will listen to the podcast. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all in the next one.